Welcome to another episode of National Divorce Talk Raw, where we cover the information that the media just doesn't seem to want to. Today's episode will be quite serious and should not be taken lightly. Viewer discretion is advised. Before we get into this episode, I wanted to make a special note. Here at Yes California, we have always been against violence in politics since day one. When I wrote the book California's Next Century 2.0, I studied a lot of social movements. One of the scholars that I studied at that time was Donatella Portela. She, along with another scholar, talked about the concept of nonviolent resistance. And what they said was that when you use violence for political means, you will lose for this reason. The number one function of a government is to provide safety for the public. This goes back to medieval times. The first things that governments ever did was national defense and putting up a border wall. When you are part of a social movement and you purport or enact or encourage violence, what that does is tell the government that it is okay to crush you in the name of security. And what we saw with multiple social movement studies is that the onus of the government to come and then crush people who suggest violence will be celebrated and accepted by the public. Namely speaking, you go out there, commit violence, the cops are going to come after you. They're going to crush you really hard. And the public is going to back them and not believe in your movement. Why? Because you were violent, because you threatened public safety, because the role of the government is to provide safety. And when they crushed you, they seemed to do their number one duty. That's why many social activists who study the topic at an academic level have said that you cannot cross that boundary into even suggesting violence, because it will equal that reaction to crush your movement. I knew that when I wrote the book for California's Next Century. The entire Cal-Exit movement, especially at Yes California, has always been dedicated to nonviolence. And in fact, we pursued the concept of national divorce because we felt it was the alternative to violence, and we know that to still be true. However, since Donald Trump's house was raided recently, the calls for violence and the actions for violence have only increased, hence the name of the show. Today we're going to be talking about how violence has entered the discussion around national divorce, although the topic of national divorce is about peaceful alternatives. Basically, the concept of national divorce says people are fighting with each other. The climate is getting very polarized. Some people have already got hurt. More people are likely to get more hurt. So why don't we peacefully divorce so that we don't have to be pushed up against each other, creating more tension and exacerbating the probability of violence? That's the concept of national divorce. That's why we support that here at Yes California, because it is a concept for peace and an alternative to violence. I needed to make sure to say that. Buckle up, because the rest of the show is going to be quite disturbing. We'll get to it in just a second, reporting on the news that the media won't make sure you're informed of. All right, let's start it off. Yeshua, and what's going on? What's going on? Post comments. We will post them. We are talking about the increase in violence after the Trump raid. So let's cover it. Let's get right into it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Share screen. Here we go.
And go to the Army, Navy store, et cetera, et cetera. They've been conditioning us to accept tyranny and think we can't do anything for 2 years. This time we must respond with force. If you know of any protests or attacks, please post here. Somebody replies and says, "Are you proposing terrorism?" To which he said, "Very important question. No, I am proposing war. Be ready to kill the enemy, not mass shootings where leftists go, not lighting buses on fire with transsexuals in them, not finding people with leftist signs in their yards and beating them up. Violence is not all terrorism. Kill the FBI on sight. Be ready to take down other active enemies of the people and those who try to prevent you from doing it." So all of this over-the-top rhetoric about this is a civil war and it's 1776 and sleep well, tomorrow's all this stuff, This guy believed you. He believed you and committed an act of terrorism and violence,
his own life,
tried to murder an FBI agents, and ultimately ended up dead himself. So again, I'm a major free speech advocate. We both are.
Absolutely.
But if you have a platform, if you have a platform, be responsible. Think about the people who are listening to you and who are taking actually literally seriously the words that are coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. That's it.
So listen to that for a second. Let me give you a little bit of context. Take a look at this, then I'll show you something.
Story. Let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. Police went ahead and shot dead an armed man who tried to breach Cincinnati, Ohio FBI building. This was all on Thursday, where an armed...
So what you saw there was Sagar and Crystal of Breaking Points talking about how a man stormed an FBI building and was killed, and that he had done that out of reaction to the FBI Justice Department raid of Trump's home. And what Breaking Points was doing was they were criticizing people on the right who were saying, this is war, this is civil war, because they're saying, you're on the right and you used inflammatory language regarding the raid against Trump, and then someone got killed because they were inspired by you. That's not good. That's really not good. But the onus is that, look, it's the Republicans, right? They're the ones that push violence. They're the ones that are doing this. So it's all on them. Actually, I would like to point out the right is reacting with violence after Trump raid, but violence is very American, and it appears on both the left and right, and it's not a California value. I'm going to show you a bunch of examples of people on the left and on the right, both encouraging violence, both saying ignore institutions. And my point is this. We get to the point where the FBI or the Justice Department does something that people don't like, and they openly say, shut it down. I defy your rulings. I defy you. I don't like you. Who are you to tell me what to do? And then they suggest violence. Well, what happened with the Supreme Court ruling on Roe v. Wade? The exact same thing. It was just on the other side. So nobody criticized that. You flip it over. Now everybody's criticizing it. So you have the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. People protest in front of Supreme Court houses. Somebody tries to kill Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh. That is not condemned on the left. The plot to kill him is never condemned by Joseph Biden or any high-ranking Democrat. The protest in front of the Supreme Court justices is never condemned by Biden or any high-ranking Democrat, even after the death. Media on the left still says, go for it, it's cool. They also said, defy the Supreme Court on the left. I remember Eleni Koulounakis, or Lieutenant Governor, said, defy the Supreme Court, and who are they to tell us what to do with our bodies? Well, now we come to the FBI, and people are saying, defy the FBI. Who are they to tell us what to do with our bodies? And also committing violence. What's the difference? It was just you didn't like what that institution said, and then your response was, I defy the institution, I don't believe in it, and I think it's okay to commit violence to prove my point. We literally have the left doing that, and then a few weeks later, the right doing that. Roe v. Wade, and now Trump's house. Now, obviously, I'm a progressive and a Californian, and I hate Trump, and I think he's a racist, and January 6th was a coup. At the same time, I'm not blind. American values aren't California values. American values are not California values. Simply put, we're not as violent as Americans. So in America, if you see something you don't like, defy the institution and start killing, whether it's on the left or whether it's on the right. Let me show you. I know that sounds extreme, but I'll walk you down and prove everything to you. So here's where the Supreme Court marshals had to ask state officials to actually do their job protecting against the Supreme Court. It turns out that there were local laws that prevented the protests on the Supreme Court justice's lawn after the attempted assassination on Kavanaugh, but they were not enforced by local law enforcement. In fact, the Supreme Court's justice security officials had to say, local officials, please do your job and protect us from these violent protests. Asking state and local laws that she wrote prohibit She's asking people to effectively do their job on state and local laws that prohibit picketing outside the homes of Supreme Court justices. Local law enforcement did not do it and had to be begged to do their job to protect Kavanaugh. Oops. I don't know what that's about. Here you go. White House still won't condemn the protests at SCOTUS homes despite the foiled plot at Kavanaugh's house. Now, not to be undone, here is a Republican, and he did an ad where he said it was okay to gun down Republicans who weren't really Republicans. And he said, I am just joking. It's just a joke. But it really looked like he was suggesting storming people's homes with SWAT teams and shooting them in their house if they weren't a real Republican.
New heat this morning. Republican Senate candidate Eric Greitens, flanked by a team dressed in tactical gear, all armed with guns, storming a home, saying in the ad they're hunting rhinos or Republicans in name only, a derogatory term for.
Now that's definitely an example of the right pursuing violence. Here's the Senate. He's suggesting shooting people. He says in a joking way. And then we see people on the right attack the FBI. Certainly looks bad. But when you had people try to kill a Supreme Court justice and local law enforcement wouldn't do anything, and the Supreme Court had to beg local law enforcement to do their job, law's already on the books. And when you have, well, I just won't show it. I showed you the clip where the Biden administration won't condemn the protests on the Supreme Court homes, even though there was already attempted killing. Now, here's one of my other favorite ones. Here's Kamala Harris joking about executing the president and vice president.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff, if you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be? Does one of us have to come out alive?
So they think that's quite famous, hilarious, but joking even in jest is written in the Constitution as a felony about executing the president. So you can't even make a mild joke in any capacity about executing a president without being tried for a felony. So Kamala did that. She was not tried. No one on the left criticized her. Ellen DeGeneres thought it was hilarious. She was talking about executing the president and the vice president and the attorney general. And Harris was never really condemned. And then she got to be vice president. So that does not look like the left saying, hey, violence is all bad. It looks like, when you're talking about killing Joe Biden, it's cool. In fact, Joe Biden said himself that he would beat the hell out of Trump if he was in high school. He wasn't really condemned for that. People hated Trump so bad, he said, hey, I'd beat him up. That's encouraging violence. So you have the vice president and the president both encouraging violence. Now, this is the other one, is that you have Maxine Waters, who's a Democrat, saying we will defy the Supreme Court. To hell with the Supreme Court. We will defy them. That's the exact same language that the right is using on the FBI. And then, of course, Pelosi was asked about civil war. Which brings us to the other point. So people on the left are talking about violence. People on the right are talking about violence. People on the left are saying, I don't care what that institution is or that they've been here for 150 years. I defy them. So on the left, you saw them say, I defy the Supreme Court. And you saw people try to kill Supreme Court justices. And you saw people not care and not condemn that. You also saw on the left talking about executing a sitting president. And people thought that was hilarious and did nothing about it. Now we fast forward to conservatives are talking about defying the FBI, war, and hurting the FBI. Also bad. But what I want to point out is if you're in a room and everybody's talking about, I defy that institution and let's commit violence, and I defy that institution and let's commit violence. And then all of a sudden the other side starts saying, I defy that institution, let's commit violence. I defy that institution, let's commit violence. Maybe they got the idea from you. Maybe all this talk about defying institutions and violence and looking the other way and not condemning it encourages an American cultural climate of violence. Maybe the problem is on both the left and the right. Okay, we're going to move on to our next. And the point is, let the Americans debate how they will. violence is an American concept. They love it. Let them debate how they want to. It's not a California value. Now, it doesn't end there. So a lot of people have been talking about secession since the Supreme Court, since the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago. Let me show you a little bit about that. If they charge Trump with the Espionage Act, you're going to see states secede from the Union. That was from Laverne Spicer. She had about almost 3,000 retweets. And here's the response from liberals. Please do. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. This is what a cult looks like. Yep. So I just love the fact that you have conservatives talking about we want to secede, and in response, you have liberals saying, get the hell out of America. So let me show you a little bit more about that. That came out recently, and we took screenshots of all the people who talked on that, and we put it together for you. Here you go. I don't know why it's doing that. That was bizarre. Let's try that again. Not sure what that was about. Okay. Okay. For whatever reason, it's choosing to not work. Not sure why. The picture for this video is that screenshot. So I'm going to read you the comments. Not sure why the computer's choosing to not work and do that. It's never done that before. Not a techie. Don't really know how to explain that. So let me just read the comments for you. So the first one is by Working Mom of Boys. Don't let you hit the door on the way out. We just showed you that one. About 203 people backed her up. Go ahead and renounce your U.S. citizenship on your way out by Susan McCain. 181 people like that. Dennis R. Hill. I would love to see red state welfare on the list of seed. I'm tired of them freeloading off of that. 484 people like that. By Dennis R. Hill. Marie at Lucky Bedford says, let the red states go totally on their own. Scary Larry says, sure, it's just that easy. 352 people backed him on that. Mookie at Ukraine Mookie said, go ahead. Red 2 at Hee 3 said, can you imagine what we get done once they're gone? Paul Henry said, let them secede. They are net takers. 148 people like that. Scott Din Georgia said, bring it. Cindy at Cindy T7 said, good. 96 people backed her up on that. Paulette said, promise, pretty please, Pinky. Whoa, Kramer at Wendy Kramer said, bye. Yeah, 665 people backed her up on that. Go for it. Just do it. We're sick of the threats. 2,244 people backed it up on Fox News is destroying the country. KYRN votes blue. That would be fabulous. Cut those states. Dark Keto Larry says, go ahead. He was liked by 164 people. Julie B says, fine. 1,502 people supported her. You say it as if it's the worst nightmare instead of our wildest dream by Mar a hell no. 120 people backed her up. And KYRN votes blue. That would be fabulous. 350 backed her up. Rose said, be sure you leave your Social Security Medicare cards at the door as you leave. 496 people backed her up. Now, this comes down back in response to the tweet by Laverne Spicer. If they try to charge Trump with the Espionage Act, you're going to see states secede from the Union. There was one comment that I particularly liked, and it was by Californian at Undercover Brother. That's UNDRCVRBROTHR. And he said, lol, the states you're imagining will collapse in less than a month on their own. The same states that won't allow California to secede because they are supported by it. 96 likes. Sorry, weren't able to show you all that. If you look at the screen grab that's attached to this video, you can literally see all the comments that I made. But I think my favorite comment is this one. So the talk was that people on the right are saying national divorce. And here's somebody going, I'm on the blue, and I think we should do this. Honestly, I think we need to talk about a breakup, says internet user 3457. I'm a blue voter who's saying this. So they were trying to say it's all red state people backing this up, but actually there were some lefties saying, go ahead and go. I literally just read you 12 to 20 different people who were on the left and who, when they heard conservatives saying we're going to secede over this, told them, go ahead and go. So when you look at that comments by conservatives about seceding, I just showed you a bunch of liberals saying leave. And here's another liberal saying, look, I normally wouldn't be for this, but it's getting pretty bad. Maybe we should, as liberals, look into this, and maybe we should let them go. And here's the best red site tweet by TWH.E.MIC. The real question here is, why do you want to keep us, and why would you want to keep us against our will? That's from a red state person. And I think they ask a good question. You want to keep us in America against our will? So forcing people to do things and stay in captivation against their will is the American way? It's not. So let's see here. Yep. Okay, let me show you those tweets real quick. Here it is. Honestly, I think we need to talk about a breakup. I'm a blue voter who's saying this, internet user 3457, and that was on this Reddit feed. If we can't overthrow the government, we'll secede from it because we're so patriotic. Here's the red state Twitter. The real question is, why do you want to keep us, and why would you do it against our will? And they're responding to a blue person, and this is a red person saying that. The talk, and again, this is in response to this tweet, and I just went over comments from all these people who were liberals saying, get the hell out, responding to this conservative saying we might secede. But they're not alone. So this is Countercurrents. They had an article come out recently, and they too are talking about how there's an increase in people on the right talking about secession after the Mar-a-Lago raid. They're talking about New Hampshire, but they're also saying that several states have looked into the topic of seceding in response to this. Here's from the International Jerusalem Post. Let me see here. I had a section outlined and then it removed it. Basically, here you go. Since the search of Trump's home in Florida last week, the internet has been abuzz with talk of civil war, of eliminating the FBI, impeaching the Attorney General, and the list goes on. Later in the week, an individual who participated in the January 6th insurrection walked into the FBI district's office in Cincinnati, Ohio, armed with assault weapons and body armor, intent on causing havoc there. Fortunately, he was stopped, chased, and later apprehended in a cornfield where, after drawing a weapon, he was killed by police. So that's the major newspaper of Israel talking about how bad it's getting in America and how people are resorting to violence and civil war after January 6th and after the Roe v. Wade decision. They're not alone. Here's this other article by The Trumpet, kind of a biblical one, but it shows you what conservatives are thinking. And of course, this eliminated my highlight too. Well, they don't make it easy. Here you go. A Yahoo News YouGov poll conducted from July 8th to the 11th found that 33% of red state Trump voters now believe they would be better off if their state seceded from the U.S. and became an independent country. This is a statistic that likely grow as the Biden administration relies. So there you go. You have this article here talking about an increase in support. You have this article here talking about an increase in support. And you have this article here talking about an increase in support of conservatives talking about secession. Here's also a conservative doing it that got a lot of support from liberals saying, go ahead and get the hell out. Here's a conservative saying, why don't you let us go? Here's a liberal saying, maybe we should back this up. That's the show for today. We wanted to show you that the topic of violence is getting worse. We do not support that. National divorce is the option against that. But as we explained in an earlier show, before the Civil War, there was a period called Bleeding Kansas, which was basically a low-level insurgency, and you could see that the Civil War would be coming from looking at that time. Are we in the Bleeding Kansas phase now? That's the question to you. Additionally, don't take it as this is just being supported by conservatives. A lot of liberals are listening to conservatives and saying, don't let the door hit you on the way out. All of this means we're getting closer to a time where states being allowed to secede is something that more Americans are thinking of. And as we've always told you here at CalExit, when we normalize the conversation, we increase the probability of success. All right, let's take some comments here. Yep, Joe Biden, what the hell? James Young, you're right. Things are scary now. Yeah, brother, absolutely. Things are getting scary now. We don't support it, but we wanted to let you know. Violence is awful from the MAGA cult. It is from the MAGA cult right now, but when you have people saying defy the Supreme Court, and you have people attempting to execute Supreme Court justices, and when you have local law enforcement not protecting the justices, and when you have federal agencies having to beg local law enforcement to protect Supreme Court justices, and when you have the top elected officials not condemning the attempted assassination of a Supreme Court justice, all of that was on the left. I'm not blaming anybody, but I'm just saying, look at a country where both sides are equally encouraging, I don't trust that institution, I don't have to do what you tell me, and I believe in violence. How long is that country going to be stable when both sides act that way? Things are bad economically, yeah. Things are going to get worse. So people are using credit cards in order to sustain themselves, and the credit card debt rate is massively increasing in America. At some point, people will not be able to use credit cards to afford the increase in prices, and that's when you're going to see real calamity. It's coming up. We haven't even seen the worst yet of the high food prices. Daniel Santoro, yeah, American values are different than California values. That's why I wanted to point out, like, when you look at America, you got the left saying, I defy your institutions and let's get violent. And when you look at America, you have people on the right saying, I defy your institutions and let's get violent. We don't do that here in California. Yeah, we covered that rhino video. It is pretty bad. Daniel, you're right. The rhino video is pretty bad. James, you're right. That video is pretty bad. But we wanted to point out he's not alone, right? So if somebody attempts to kill a Supreme Court justice and you can't say anything about that, please don't talk to me about how you're against violence and how other people exacerbate violence. If you don't have a tweet or post saying, I hate Kavanaugh, but attempting to kill a Supreme Court justice is wrong and everybody on the left should be condemning this, then be quiet, right? Because you're a hypocrite. I didn't like Kavanaugh either. I didn't like the Roe v. Wade decision either. But that basically established the platform that it's okay to say you defy institutions and attempt to kill people. If you can't condemn that, then you can't condemn it when it's on the other side. That's ridiculous. Probably. And that's why we want to secede, James. Things are nuts, and we don't feel safe in America. That's why I keep doing this. People are like, why do you keep doing this? And I go, because it gets worse every year. Political division in America since we started this in 2014 has not gotten better. It's only gotten worse. We started in 2014, political division hit new levels we'd never seen before with the presidency of Obama. And it's only grown since that time. It hasn't gone down. So why do we think that secession is not a good idea when literally nothing has calmed down and there's literally no plans to calm it down? All of the indications, so a trajectory where people are going to crash into each other. And that's when really bad shit happens. Sorry, stuff. You're right, it's both parties. Multi-party system might have been great back when Ross Perot was trying to do it in the 1990s. I think now the USA is just unfixable, like you say. I support secession because I want peace too. National divorce is a great option because it allows for peace and not violence. Totally agree with you guys. Thank you, James. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Yashun. All right, that's it for us today. We will see you next time. Thank you. Not trying to upset anybody, but we want to keep you informed of where things are going. We are not for violence. We are for national divorce because we think California seceding and annexing peacefully is a way to keep these things calm. And we think an America without a California will be one that picks at red state people less and therefore doesn't rile them up as much and allows things to be more calm and cohesive. And that will mean a safer America for everybody. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you.